time moved on, and there was going to be a trial. When we heard that the trial was going to start in Yutes Kislev, Chassidim are smart, and they realized, wow, so Yud Beis Tammuz, this thing starts now. Yutes Kislev, those two are Chag HaGeula. It couldn't be a better day
it's actually
in
interesting.
the year.
On Yud Beis Tammuz, when the Rebbe first broke the story, the Rebbe said that the previous Rebbe showed a moifus, a miracle, that the initial theft from the library was identified around Yud Shvat, and now the story is emerging in the public sphere on Yud Beis Tammuz, and that all of these dates are of significance. And it's interesting, the Rebbe did not himself explicitly make mention of the fact that the trial started on Yud Kislev. Maybe that's just so blatantly obvious, but then the Rebbe spoke so much about the parallels between the Alter Rebbe's imprisonment and what was happening now, that was very clear that these two things were converging in a very, very powerful way.
Well, we went to the oil every single day, and that was a major, again, another surprise and a shock. However, on Shabbos Mevarchim Kislev, 3 weeks before, or 2.5 weeks before, the Rebbe began to emphasize how the month of Kislev is connected and associated to Simcha. And as time moved on, it became more and more emphasized, that concept of Simcha. So here we had the Rebbe going to the oil every day. Obviously, this is a dead serious time. The Rebbe himself can't express the Maimon properly. And there's a trial. There's an actual trial in a court. I went to court one day. You went to the court another day as well, didn't you?
Twice, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the trial. From Tezvav Tammuz 1985, which was the second time the Rebbe spoke about it, there wasn't that much in terms of the Rebbe talking about this publicly or explicitly until the trial started on Yud Kislev, and the trial lasted 3 weeks, approximately 21 days. As you said, the Rebbe went to the oil every day, which meant that the Rebbe was fasting every day. Many Chassidim fasted, if you recall, half a day, Tainas Shois. Many Chassidim said Tillim every morning, almost everybody, during the course of the trial. I remember during one of the Shabbosim, one of the Chassidim, Rabbi Ichke Gansberg, stood up at the Farbrengen and pleaded with the Rebbe to, for the sake of his own health, not to go to the oil every single day. It was a very, very intense time. And elder Chassidim went to the court in downtown Brooklyn, and there was a rotation of Bochum based on the first letter of your name. You're supposed to go once. I happened to sneak in a second time, but one of the days that I was in court turned out to be a very, very key day. They had one of their expert witnesses there, and what was being discussed was the letter that the previous Rebbe wrote to Professor Marx, which the Rebbe said was going to be a key piece of evidence, in which he explicitly references the library as the library belonging to Agudas Chassidic Chabad.
The Rebbe said that to the lawyers privately.
Right. And the contention of the experts were that the previous Rebbe was only saying that for expediency, because he thought that would be an easier way for the library to be transferred, but in reality it was his own private thing. And so I remember it came time for cross-examination, and Nat Lewin started to grill the witness if he really believes it's conceivable that the previous Rebbe would say an untruth. And I remember the expert witness said, well, nowhere in the Torah does it prohibit lying per se. And Nat Lewin retorted back, if you would, please translate the words midvar sheker tirchok. And I remember all of us, the Bochum in the court, we all went, yeah, like he just begged. And Judge Sifton said, called for order in the court. Amazingly, you look back at the first time the Rebbe spoke about this on Yud Beis Tammuz, the Rebbe forewarned every single thing that came up in the trial. The Rebbe said this would be the contention, and the Rebbe spoke about this 2 years before the trial. They are going to say that the previous Rebbe, for expediency, falsely characterized the library as being public, when in reality it is absolutely unfathomable. First of all, the Rebbe actually said it would have worked against him. It would have been easier to get the books out as a private collection rather than one belonging to the community. But furthermore, that it's inconceivable for a Rebbe to speak an untruth, even if there's justification. And the judge, in his ruling, cited that it is inconceivable that a man of the caliber of the Rebbe would in any way present something to be anything other but the absolute truth.
Listen, this is a good segue to what, when you say about emes and emes lamita, the absolute truth in the Rebbe, this, in the time of pain and of intensity, the Rebbe going to the oil every day and trials and the movement on trial, really, the Rebbe called for increased simcha, which was really the complete opposite of the sentiment, of the feeling. You had to really find it. You had to work on yourself to be besimcha. And Hei Teves, it's all sprung up, but a year before Hei Teves, while the trial was going on, we couldn't, it was difficult.
Well, we're talking about simcha.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll recall very well when, right before the trial started, a question about the Rebbe himself having to testify in court. And on Yud Gimel Kislev, the 13th of Kislev, the judge ruled that the Rebbe would not have to appear or testify in court. And that night, the Bochrim in 770.
It was an all-nighter.
All-nighter, the famous song, Yakiru v'yedo kol yeshvei sevel vos is getroffen Yud Gimel Kislev. And all night long, upstairs in 770, the Bochrim were celebrating that the Rebbe would not have to go through that.
We said Tillim that morning, the whole Tillim that morning at 6 o'clock. That was a heavy time. But let's go back to the Simcha, and we have a clip that we're going to watch over here from Zos Chanukah. What happened was that when Chanukah began, and Chanukah began pretty regular, then in the middle of Chanukah there was a children's rally, and the Rebbe was talking about Simcha, and at the end of that rally, the Rebbe began to really encourage the singing very, very strongly.
The Rebbe was talking emphatically about spoke about it. Children, Tiferes Genim, Bati Chabad, about
everybody.
An absolute. It was like a whole new call to reinvigorate our efforts all over.
Mesibas Shel Simcha, parties, like the celebrations. Mm-hmm. And on Shabbos Miketz, Shabbos Chanukah, which was, Shabbos Miketz was the 7th day of Chanukah, so on that day the Rebbe said that he himself called for a Simcha, so it has to be V'ani HaMaskal, I have to be the one to begin. So tonight there's going to be a Farbrengen. The Rebbe said in the regular time...
another Farbrengen called by...
The Rebbe said in the regular time of 9:30, but not in the regular time of the week, which was Motzei Shabbos, and the Rebbe, that wasn't the usual time for a Farbrengen. Then the Rebbe said, I know there was a call for the communal Farbrengen tonight, but I'm sure the Mashpiyim won't mind if they postpone their Farbrengen until tomorrow on actual Zos Chanukah, on the 8th day of Chanukah, and tonight there'll be a Farbrengen that in the regular time. In other words, the Rebbe said, tonight I'm going to be doing this Mesibah Shel Simcha. Mm-hmm. And on that night, the Rebbe spoke about the Alter Rebbe. That's when the Rebbe brought in the fact that when the Alter Rebbe was in jail, there was a meeting from his Rebbes, the Magid and the Baal Shem Tov. And he asked them, should he continue? And they said, not only should you continue, you should increase spreading Chassidus. The Rebbe spoke about it, asked the questions, and he spoke about the story at length. But this was such an important element to show us that this is our Yutes Kislev issue. This is the Rebbe in jail, and the Rebbe said, as a result, he's saying that if you look at their complaint, which was sheker, the complaint is that Chassidi Chabad seien nicht aktiv. That Chabad are not active. They said that Agudas Chabad are not active. Basically saying Chabad is not anymore, it's defunct. It's not a. So the Rebbe said that's a sheker, it's a falsehood. But at the same time, we need to take that seriously and think to ourselves, although we've done so much, it's not commensurate to the koiches, to the energies, and to the brachas that we have been given by the Rebbes, by the Eibishter, and so on. I think
we remember instances when Simchas Torah goes straight into Shabbos, where there were 3 Farbrengens in 24 hours, the Simchas Torah Farbrengen, and then 2 Farbrengens on Shabbos Bereishis. Aside from that, I'm not sure how often it occurred that there were 3 Farbrengens in 24 hours. Shabbos, 7th day of Chanukah, and then Motzei Shabbos, and then Sunday, the Rebbe went to the Oyel
And then, as we said before, this was the big Farbrengen from the Mashpiyim.
Which was already pushed off from Shabbos
and it
to
started
Sunday.
right after Shachar. That Farbrengen went on throughout the day. Yeah. And it was one heck of a happy Simcha Farbrengen, which people basically had to force themselves. You had to get into it, but only because we saw how the Rebbe was really asking for this, that there should be a lot of Simcha.
Now, the Rebbe spoke a lot in the Maimorim and Yud Shvat about this idea of Bizbuz Eitzers, that when it's a time of warfare, you just, all the treasury opens up. You could see that the Rebbe, this was we were in the midst of the war. This is the heat of the battle, and it was just in such an incredible unleashing on the Rebbe's part of Torah and of Simcha and of joy and of energy that was incredible.
So the Rebbe comes back from the oil. He comes down from Mincha. And there is a little bit of a pandemonium. There was not quite ever a pandemonium when the Rebbe came in, but it was a Simchas Torah Dika feeling. And even the Rebbe looked like a Simchas Torah Dika. The Rebbe looked quite uplifted. And the Rebbe went up after Meir. First of all, the Rebbe came downstairs. That's already, those days the Rebbe wasn't davening downstairs.
Right.
But and it was the end of Hanukkah. The Hanukkah had ended already. But no, the Rebbe came down. And then when the Rebbe went back up, word came down that there's going to be a Farbrengen from the Rebbe tonight. What a simcha! There was a rikud, a dance in 770 from the Aron Kodesh all the way to the back. Mm-hmm. Everybody was like so excited. Not only that, when the Rebbe came down to the Farbrengen, there was 3 sichas in the Farbrengen. After the second sicha, they were singing the Hakofas singing. Yeah. First of all, the Rebbe turned around and said they should start whistling. And then I stood like sort of opposite the Rebbe, a little bit to the Rebbe's right. And in the middle of it, there's a lot of people would stand. There was a rikud going on at the Farbrengen. I never saw anything like that.
In the shvil.
Like opposite the Rebbe, because people felt that the Rebbe wanted a Simchas Torah type of atmosphere, not just a Simcha, but a Simcha that comes from the depth. And that's
the
what
menorah
was lit on the 9th night of Hanukkah, if you will. I think that's the emes. That's the truth is that it's hard to imagine being besimcha when the Rebbe was in jail. Can you imagine dancing when the Alter Rebbe was sitting in jail? We danced on Yitzchak Kislev because not only he came out, but the whole movement was exonerated.
Now, I think it should be noted that throughout the course of the Rebbe's leadership, very often the way that he combated darkness and adversary was through simcha. Like the Yom Kippur War, Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbe said to dance. So some of the most unlikely times that you wouldn't expect it to be joy, but this is not frivolous joy. This is joy that is simcha peres geder, that is breaking through barriers of darkness, and this was unprecedented.
And you knew then. I mean, it was pretty clear that we felt very strongly that the Rebbe has the obvious hand, and and the way the Rebbe explained this whole idea that this was. The movement, not just about the personal thing, this was the whole movement. And you knew that it would eventually work out that way, but it was hard to see this. And the Rebbe was basically telling us, you've got to get in touch with the emes, the truth, the reality here. The reality here is the Rebbe is the one that runs the movement, and the Rebbe is the one that basically runs the world in that case. And in the presence of all the Chabad and the Shluchim and Shlichus and the work that is done all over the place. And you got to find it deep down within you. You've got to get in touch with reality, with the truth, and that is that there's an emes, and therefore there is a simcha here.
When you talk about, interesting, you keep referencing emes, the truth. In the course of this Farbrengen, the Rebbe spoke about the story of the visit of the Maggid and the Baal Shem Tov coming to the Alter Rebbe, and I mean, and if to our viewers, I would say, if you understand Yiddish. These are two Farbrengens, the Motzei Shabbos Farbrengen, Sunday Farbrengen, that the language, the tone, the concepts, the ideas that Rebbe was talking about was really very special and very unique. But there was a strong emphasis on how the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid came in bodily form, and a whole back and forth al pi nigla based. How could they issue a psak, a Torah ruling when they're really souls from heaven, and Torah lev hashamayim here, Torah has to be adjudicated here by people, and how at that moment they were neshamas begufim, they were actually souls and bodies. This idea that something spiritual is real and has a real manifestation and impact in this world, I think is an overarching storyline, if you will, of this whole story of Hei Teves. During these Farbrengens, this is when the Rebbe made the parallel to Yossi Kislev and what the Alter Rebbe enjoyed, and the Rebbe referenced that again on Hei Teves itself, that the fact that there was a trial here meant that there was a spiritual source for it and the lack of activism and so on and so forth. But there's another very, very important point, and that is something the Rebbe spoke about often, how the Alter Rebbe was vindicated by the Tsarist government, that the Tsarist government acknowledged the truth and the veracity of the Alter Rebbe's teachings. And the Rebbe made reference to this going back to the Rebbetzon's testimony, that a federal judge recognized that a Rebbe belongs to his Chassidim and perforce he has no personal possessions. And so this idea of recognition is something that is important in so much as it's not, okay, well, we know that truth, so big deal. No, because as we all know, the destiny of truth is that it should resonate with all of mankind. The Rebbe spoke a lot about Shev Mitzvah during this time period, the recognition by the Noachites. So here's another very strong parallel between Yossi Kislev and Hei Teves, which is the recognition by a secular court of this truth.